Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Just gonna let the system run to let everyone join. I will give it another 20 seconds, and then we will formally commence this webinar about the release of the version 2.2 IS Design and As-Built Rating Tool. Okay, so formally getting going. Good morning and good afternoon if you're in Australia. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that wherever we may be in Australia, we'll be meeting on traditional lands and pay respects to elders past, present, and those leaders of future generations. For anyone in New Zealand, kia ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm really pleased to be welcoming you all. This is an important moment for ISC for a couple of reasons. It's the first time I get to publicly welcome our new Executive Director of Product Solutions, who's leading our ratings and associated work, Chris Fumberger. So you're going to be hearing more from Chris very shortly. But also the release of version 2.2 of the tool is a really significant moment for us. We really believe that through the hard work of Ben and really all of our ratings team, ratings and technical team, plus the contributions of so many of you all, that we will have a more streamlined, more adaptable tool for you to all use in the market. So I'm going to really get out of the way very quickly. I would just say, I'd also like not just to thank you all for those of you who contributed to the process, which isn't fully finished. It's about to go on display as Matt and Chris will walk you through. But thank you all for joining. I know that at least one person on this call is about to become a parent for the first time. And going back to when I opened with an acknowledgement of country, often our First Nations people in many parts of the world will talk about doing things with either 7 generations in mind or often our grandchildren's grandchildren. So I really hope for that at least the one person who's about to become a parent, that when you return from parental leave, you really enjoy and find great value in working with 2.2, and I hope for your as yet unborn child's sake that 2.2 and the outcomes that it supports do great things for your child's grandchildren's grandchildren. Chris, over to you. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks for the intro, Toby, and welcome, everyone. Thanks very much. As Toby said, Chris Fumberger, Executive Director of Product Solutions at ISC. Really excited to not only join ISC, been a recent posting for me, but also to really thankful to meet everyone and been working through various stakeholders recently and talking to them, and some real positivity around the changes upcoming with the 2.2 updates for the technical manual. I think I'll echo some of the sentiments that Toby's gone through already in terms of huge thank you to everyone out there who's had input, and we're looking forward to more input with the imminent release of the manual and then the review and feedback. I think in terms of Ben will run through some of the details, but there's a huge amount of feedback so far. I think in terms of we've held various webinars, we've had technical working groups and had a lot of feedback and input through there. And then the version 2.1 projects, a lot of really great feedback from actual people using the tool at the moment. So I really appreciate that feedback and insight. I think as I see, there has been a huge amount of work gone behind the scenes to collate that information, and there is a massive process to do that. There's many hundreds of comments and pieces of feedback that we've gone through. It's no small task to go through a 400-page technical manual, take on board many hundreds of comments and pull them together. And I think we're probably going to praise the team a lot through this webinar, but I think in terms of the team at ISC and the work they've done that Ben's led, it's been fantastic. I think a couple of the key points we want to get across today, and I think they've come across really clearly when Ben steps through some of the detail, is around the fact that we've listened, we've taken on board, and we've really appreciated the feedback that everyone's given us. So I think acting on some of those key themes around improving the usability of the manual, making it more user-friendly, reducing the administrative burden, looking for impact rather than process. I think there's some of the key pieces we've really taken on board. So really appreciate that feedback. And I think from here, Ben will allude to what the next steps are and where we head. But I think in terms of, we're really looking forward to getting the feedback when the manual goes live out there, and then actioning that feedback and making sure we're further improving and improving on the manual and the processes that sit inside it, and also to making sure we focus on that impact and great sustainability outcomes. So I think that is a great segue into Ben to dive into the detail. I know everyone's waiting to see where we've landed with some of these outcomes. So I'll hand over now to Ben Wade to run you through some of the deep dive information.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Ben Wade. I'm a Principal Sustainability Advisor at the ISC. So today we're going to be running through some of the more substantial improvements introduced with version 2.2. We obviously don't have time to be going through everything line by line. So we're going to touch on some key improvements as well as some other changes being introduced to the scheme. But I just want to start with a bit of background and some context for this work. So the improvements to the technical manual were delivered in conjunction with several other measures to the version 2.1 and verification work plans. Many of you may have seen this slide before in our presentation on March 7th, where we used this to kind of provide an overview of the work plan process that we were delivering. So as a way of background, the verification of version 2.1 work plans commenced in early 2024 with a detailed review of numerous sources of feedback received by the ISC, which you can see there on the left-hand side. This feedback has been used to distill the core concerns that ISC have worked towards addressing in both work plans, and I'll show you these core concerns as they relate to the version 2.1 tool on the next slide. ISC has then internally workshopped a significant number of options, ideas, and variations to these to identify kind of our preferred and feasible options. These were then communicated externally for feedback as part of our roundtable in March. And since then, we've progressed these measures with extensive stakeholder involvement through to today, where we'll be running through some of the outputs. So in terms of the core concerns as they relate to version 2.1, we can see here they've been categorized as perspectives or shared perspectives of three groups. We have across the top there, all parties being ISC, rating tool users, and verifiers, and these are shared perspectives across those parties, as we saw in the feedback that we received. In the middle there, we've got the perspectives of the IS community, which includes verifiers and rating tool users, and then the perspective of ISC at the bottom there. And so these were the core concerns that we really framed a lot of our measures and a lot of our work around to address. So once we identified the feasible options to address the core concerns, we had 5 measures relating specifically to the version 2.1 tool that was shared externally with projects and delivery authorities and verifiers in our roundtable in March. Following positive feedback received on those, we have delivered items 1, 2, 3, and 5 successfully. Feedback received regarding item 4 provided a substantial mix of opinions, which is always good, and it's good to get all the different perspectives. So subsequently, this item's been flagged for further investigation and won't be launched at this stage. There are several other measures in that same roundtable that we presented related to the verification process. I'll briefly cover off the progress against some of these towards the end of the presentation. But to get stuck into it, being the launch webinar for version 2.2, we will focus on basically the impacts and the changes that have occurred as a result of measures 2 and 3 on screen here. So the snapshot, an overview of what we've done from version 2.1 to version 2.2 can be seen on screen here. These are some of the key metrics that we often use to reflect sort of scale and change and things like that associated with the rating tools. And perhaps while not fully representative of all of the improvements that have gone and the effort that has gone into the creation of version 2.2, they do obviously highlight some pretty substantial improvements and change nonetheless. Couple of a couple of key ones just to call out there at the top. I know there'll be a couple of queries about these, but the 74% of suggestions raised from the survey responses provided by projects and industry. The remaining suggestions provided, they haven't been fully dismissed. They've been put into our CI register and will continue to be considered in future updates, and will form part of our heat mapping for our continuous improvement process from here forward. In terms of our changes, you'll see in our change log a little later with some of the supported documentation that goes with the update to the 2.2 manual. Most credits have had some level of change to them. However, we're only saying that we've changed 25 out of 37 because a couple of those do include just minor ruling updates or minor word changes. So overall, we're saying that 25 out of the 37 credits have had a material change to improve their flexibility, scale, admin burden, and things like that. So overall, we've successfully reduced the scale and complexity and admin burden associated with the majority of credits. In some instances, we have more than halved the number of requirements for given credits. The changes have emphasized focus on rewarding outcomes and have reduced the overlap with regulatory compliance. And the flexibility of the tool has also been greatly improved in a number of areas. Just lastly, to cover off and to maybe dive a little deeper into the stakeholder engagement that Toby and Chris have previously mentioned. This was a huge part of us being able to manage and implement the change that we have as part of 2.2. So since January 15th, the ISC have provided updates to industry every 2 to 3 weeks. These updates were distributed by ISC's mailing lists, and they were also published on ISC's website. Each update included details of the proposed measures, key milestones, links to relevant material, information on current participants, as well as guidance on how interested parties could get involved and provide feedback on our work plan and on our measures. As previously mentioned, a public webinar was conducted on 7th of March, outlining the core concerns as identified by ISC. Post-webinar, surveys issued to attendees demonstrated a 100% support rate for the measures relating to technical manual improvements, which is always good to see. Through the development and delivery phase, ISC utilised our IS technical working groups for in-depth input. Members from the IS planning, essentials, operations, design and as-built, proponent and sustainable materials technical working groups contributed to shaping proposed approaches and reviewed draft content, including several updated credits. Information on these TWGs, as well as organisations, and the members and the organisations that they represent, can be found on ISC's website for anyone interested. ISC also directly engaged with our registered version 2.1 projects to gather insights from active tool users. So participation from these projects varied, ranging from reviewing and providing feedback on proposed measures and changes to the tool, to as far as drafting entire credits themselves for ISC to consider. So representatives from approximately 25 IS version 2.1 projects have been involved. This includes designers, contractors, consultants, and delivery authorities. So that's enough background. For now, I will just be doing a run through of sort of the 6 areas where we've seen some pretty substantial change, and I'll touch on a few of the other improvements across the scheme, as well as the verification process as well at the end. We will then allow some time for a bit of a Q&A today, but we will also be having follow-up sessions to this to allow you guys to go and review the new manual and come back and ask some questions and let us know the things that you want us to dive a bit deeper into. So starting with ALIA2, our risk and opportunity credit. This credit has been modified fairly extensively with very detailed input being provided by some of our version 2.1 projects in Victoria. It has been relabeled risk management following a terminology change to better align the definition of risk with ISO 3100. Feedback on this credit largely emphasized challenges with admin burden and overreaching evidence requirements when demonstrating implementation of treatment options for risks. The IC has attempted to pull back the scope of this credit and focus on updates captured within the project's risk register. We've also combined design and as-built criteria, which will significantly reduce the submission effort for projects and subsequently the admin burden on projects. In addition to this, there are a substantial number of other changes to ALIA2, as you can see a few of them listed there, and the credit obviously looks quite a bit different for those that are familiar with it. So we encourage project teams to jump in and review this one closely. And it can, if necessary, we can obviously spend some more time on it in the future and do a detailed run through. Next credit is SPR1, our Sustainable Procurement Strategy credit. A lot of challenges have been highlighted by a number of our rating partners in the WA market. Their primary concerns revolved around the ambiguity of the term or the phrase material supply chain risks when trying to identify relevant items of procurement to be considered under the credit and the subsequent SPR 2 and 3 credits. So this term has been removed and the language modified to better align SPR 1 with other risk-related credits such as ALIA 2 and RES 1. This can be seen on the right-hand side here. The involvement of various personnel across the level 1 requirements has also been improved to consistently apply the same people and same team members, simplifying the coordination of people and level of effort that was previously expected of projects. The assessment of extended supply chains has been shifted from level 1 to level 2. And lastly, similar to ALIA 2, we have tried to keep the scope and reach of evidence requirements for the credit to a minimum to avoid unnecessary admin burden on project teams. Third, we have our ECN1 credit. And so we had some pretty uniform feedback across the country for this one. And we also had some very detailed input and suggestions from a couple of our Victorian projects again. We have 4 primary changes to this credit. Firstly, we've revised the minimum CapEx thresholds for significant decisions. While IC stands by the potential impact of a $2 million decision not differing based on scale and of the project, this modification is primarily to account for evidence burden on larger projects, so ensuring the tool scales appropriately for larger scale projects. Second, we have revised the language used in the level 3 requirements from externalities to external impacts. This terminology aligns with language used by the Infrastructure Australia and their cost benefit analysis guidance. Third, we've updated the additional guidance section to provide clearer examples of the MCA process as well as the MCA process for non-significant decisions as referenced by other credits. And last but not least, we have created a detailed supporting guide, as you can see on the right-hand side there, providing instruction and worked examples on how to approach the cost-benefit analysis criterion introduced in level 3. The next 4 credits I will do collectively, so that's the ENV 1, 2, 3, and 4 credits from our environments category. So for those that aren't familiar, this is our water quality, noise, vibration, and air quality credits. Following challenges witnessed in the Victorian and WA markets and feedback from New Zealand, along with having witnessed some of the longest credit summary forms I have ever seen, the ISC has made significant modifications to these 4 credits. We have aligned level 1 to other credits in the technical manual, whereby level 1 is now representative of no net loss or no negative impact. So this is similar to how we present it in Eco and in Heritage. By doing so, this has provided IC with a performance metric to use in level 1 in place of all of the more qualitative criteria that previously were there, which has ultimately allowed us to remove more than 50 requirements across the 4 credits. In order to do so, this has meant bringing a level 2 requirement into level 1 in each instance. However, to ensure this did not negatively impact the majority of projects that target these credits, ISC reviewed results against these criteria from the period of 2018 to 2025 and looked at both targeted scores and verified outcomes against those. As you can see there on the right-hand side, and if anyone that's familiar with the previous criteria table for the EMV category, it is a substantial reduction in the number of criteria and requirements for any project that previously was targeting level 2 and was planning on targeting level 2. It does not affect your target score or your potential output for these credit. A couple more to go. So I'm going to touch on Eco 1 quickly. So ecological protection and enhancement. On the back of a number of discussions in our design and as-built technical working groups, and I know they've been sort of looking a lot at guidance notes and things like that to try and support projects here. We also had a lot of feedback from the Queensland market about these credits, as well as some recent sort of work with our New South Wales projects to try and make this a bit more understandable and applicable. We have decided to significantly cut down the level 1 requirements and just focus in on 2 key areas. So the first being the quantification of ecological value impacts, and the second being the effective management of ecological value for both on-site features as well as obtained offsets to ensure these benefits are realised. So this quantification has already been drastically improved and simplified over version 1.2. And now the accompanying requirements of level 1 have halved, focusing efforts on measuring and rewarding outcomes and reducing overlap with regulatory compliance. This is one I'm really excited about, and I think will greatly improve the efficiency of trying to reward projects for some of their biodiversity outcomes. The last couple that I will sort of have a bit more detail on is their Workforce 2 and Workforce 3 credits. So some common feedback that we've received related to our workforce category. Our existing definition of employee was found to be very challenging for some models and some delivery models to apply. So while we do have to acknowledge that different delivery models can directly impact the project's ability to deliver sustainable outcomes, we were able to balance this and with some improvements and to make the Workforce 2 and 3 credits more flexible to account for different delivery models. So we have split the definition of employee into direct employees and workers. Level 1 and 2 for both Workforce 2 and 3 are now applicable to direct employees only, while projects looking to demonstrate best practice and achieve level 3 will extend this participation to include all other workers on site. So for anyone that's not familiar with these definitions and these requirements, that means it extends to include the likes of subcontractors operating in a full-time capacity on the project. This definition change is accompanied by a raft of other changes across both credits, including a handful of deleted requirements, shifted requirements, and some cut down criteria. So hopefully this will also collectively reduce the admin burden. Involved. I'll just wrap up with the TM kind of improvements. Just picking out a couple of other credits here. Like I said at the start, we have made sort of pretty material changes to 25 of the 37 credits. So we're definitely not covering everything today, and we encourage projects to go out and have a look at that TM and come back to us with any questions that they've got. But looking at SPR2, sorry, apologies, I'll just skip back here a second. We've introduced optional criteria to SPR2, WOT1, and ENE1 credits to improve flexibility and ensure that outcomes are rewarded and verified wherever possible while maintaining clear guides for best practice. In Workforce One, we've had an interesting measure or option that we've been able to implement there. It's a bit of an adaptation to an approach we used in ICE Essentials. So we have separated and will award the points allocation for design and as-built separately. So that is to say, as-built can be targeted and awarded without design being achieved. While it sounds perhaps a touch complex, this is all automated in the back end of the scorecard. And really, again, trying to account for all different types of delivery models and different teams being involved in the design and construction phases. Lastly, here, Workforce 4, we have updated our scoring methodology to allow greater flexibility for partial implementation of RCLG requirements, again, so we can seek to reward projects wherever possible for implementing those outcomes. As I mentioned at the start, just wanting to cover off a few of the other improvements that are coming with the updated technical manual as part of these work plans. So we have sourced and will be publishing some completed and verified examples of CSFs. These will be made available on our ISET resources for people to check out. An updated submission guideline is currently being closed out, which will include an accompanying guide for CSF drafting. In response to popular demand, we've created a number of communication docs regarding the benefits of verification and the IS rating scheme. So these can be used when discussing the rating tool with your broader teams, and incorporates some info on financial wins and carbon wins that our IS rated projects have demonstrated and quantified. We will be rolling out the screening process created for IS Essentials to version 2.1 and version 2.2 for projects under the value of $500 million. The screening process is another automated function in the back end of the materiality assessment that removes up to 12 credits from the rating based on their relevance. Lastly here, we have the revised base case proposal form, and I'll show this one in a bit more detail. So this form substantially reduces the number of fields to be completed by projects and improves clarity around its function and applications. The updates aim to better describe the purpose of BAU assumptions and where they are needed to be used, as well as where they are not needed to be used. This will significantly reduce the number of BAU assumptions a project is required to submit, subsequently reducing admin burdens, submission turnaround times, effort involved in obtaining approved base case proposal, and subsequently, the costs involved for any projects undertaking these credits. So in addition to this, ISC will be providing fields to capture asset characteristics in the base case proposal form, and this is to help improve data capabilities of the ISC and provide us the tools to create new, more insightful and efficient benchmarking tools to provide to industry. Last but not least, as of today, ISC will be formally transitioning over to our new verification procedure. So this procedure was communicated to industry back in February. Procedure documents were put up in April on ISC's website. The IC has been testing and piloting this process through June to August, and it's already demonstrated to be extremely effective and efficient. The overarching goal is to ensure the alignment of the verification feedback with the verification procedures, improve alignment of our verification procedure with the ISEAL guiding principles, and ensure consistent turnaround times are managed for project teams. For more information on our verification procedure and the documents and the procedures are available on on our website to review. So from here, and note today's quite a short session, so there will be follow-up sessions to come after this. The on-display version of the IS version 2.2 design and as-built technical manual will be available through the ISAP resources. Accompanying this, as I mentioned before, we have created a change document, or summary of changes document, and it will be provided on ISAP resources with the technical manual. So similar to what some of you may have seen before regarding the proposed changes to the verification process, this document details all stakeholder feedback received in the version 2.1 surveys and outlines how the IFC has responded to it. And so just note that the feedback has been generalized where multiple inputs relating to the same topic have been provided. There will be links provided to further surveys following this webinar for any parties wanting to provide final input and feedback and commentary on the technical manual through the display period. The on-display period will be open until the 19th of September. I believe Lauren will be making a little pop-up function happen now, hopefully in this webinar, if they're to find out if there's any particular areas of interest that you'd like to hear more about in the next sessions. Similarly, post this session, you're welcome to advise once you've had an opportunity to dive into that technical manual. For existing 2.1 projects looking to transition to version 2.2, you can indicate your interest along with any concerns you may have in making this transition through the provided survey links. And I suggest you do this once you've had a chance to run through the version 2.2 technical manual. The ISC will be looking to incorporate any necessary changes in response to feedback on the technical manual in late September, with the intention of providing the final copy early October. All other material discussed today, along with the version 2.2 rating collateral, will be uploaded to the ISAP resources through September, so keep an eye out for those. That's it for me in terms of presentation content. Similar to Chris and Toby, I just want to thank everyone very much that has contributed and participated for your involvement in this iterative improvement of version 2. Your continued support of ISC and level of engagement and feedback has been incredibly helpful. We're hopeful our updates and improvements to the rating scheme will continue to help all of you and our industry progress the sustainability performance of our sector. So thank you very much, everyone. I believe we are now going to, if we have some time left, run through some Q&As.
That's correct, Ben. Happy to, there's been some really good questions in the chat, but well done on running through that. I know there's a lot of info to run through, but you did really well. I think it's really good to open up, particularly some of the way we've taken on that feedback, improve things. I think your discussion around EMV credits with the WA Victorian feedback has been quite strong. So we've definitely listened. I think calling that out's good. You know, around eco credit, the rewarding some of those outcomes, that's, you know, part of that focus about looking at the impact and trying to make it make the process better so we can get there. And then the other thing that I really like is walking through the base case proposal form and reducing the amount of assumptions and so forth, but it's all about making it more user friendly. I think, you know, really great job in outlining that. I think in terms of the questions that have come in, we've got one here from Kat. She's asked, can the current version 2.1 rated projects adopt or pilot some of the improvements now? And this has been a big topic of discussion in ISC. Yep. And yeah, if you want to run with that one, Ben, that'd be great.
Yeah, we are as keen as mustard to try and get as many projects onto the version 2.2 content as soon as possible. We are trying to do that in a way that is measured and appropriate. We have learnt from some challenges faced in the past with our transition from 2.0 to 2.1 that there does have to be some limitations put in place when it comes to the transition. Otherwise, having a hybrid of the two manuals can cause ISC verifiers and projects some difficulties, and it has shown that previously. So we provided those surveys to try and get an idea of, one, if there are any barriers or challenges that projects see in transitioning over to 2.2, and based on the outcome of that, we will be making a decision to try and get as many projects across as possible to 2.2 as soon as possible. So we can start those discussions through September, and hopefully once we have that final manual in October, we'll be able to press the go button on those.
And further to that, Ben, there's a question in there from Mick about the phase out plan of version 2.1. And so can new projects from, say, the end of October, when we release the new manual, can they still register for the old ones?
Yeah.
Version 2.1 Pro.
Yeah, so it's a bit different to our sunset period with version 1.2 that you guys may be familiar with previously. We are confident that a vast majority of people will want to shift to 2.2 given the scale of the changes and the efficiency that's been sort of improved in the technical manual. That being said, we are also aware of the lengthy establishment entails, I guess, the procurement periods and sort of the planning work that goes towards delivering a rating on any version. So the current plan is, by exception, we will be allowing projects to continue on 2.1. And so if there is a barrier or an issue in transitioning across, or there is an absolute must to stay on version 2.1, we will have that discussion happily. And we'll be trying to do everything we can to get everyone across to 2.2 at the same time.
Thanks, Ben. I think that is the key. I think we want people moving to 2.2. I think it's going to be better for everyone. Another question came in from Michael around will a track change version be provided? And as far as I understand, it won't be provided out into the market, but we will provide the new manual in its current form and look for feedback on that one.
Yes, okay. And we've got that summary of changes document as well, which will hopefully steer you through where we've implemented everything. That's built off our internal track change log, which is a little bit too much of a sort of eyeful, I think, to be publishing externally. So hopefully that makes it nice and clear as to where all the changes have been implemented.
Toby.
Ben covered it in the end, but I just wanted to emphasize it's not that we're trying to be unhelpful, but just when you look at the amount of changes that have been tracked, etc., it's pretty overwhelming already. So to try to have that as a public thing, I think is probably less helpful than you might imagine.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And to the team who's had to go through those track changes, including myself, it is an amazing process. And but I think having the manual out in its pure current form is the best outcome. Okay, similar to those questions, Oliver has asked, what date does the IS version 2.2 come into effect, and what date is the 2.1 being retired? You've sort of already discussed this, Ben, but you just want to reiterate that again, please?
Yeah, with 2.2, as I mentioned there, we are in an on display period now, and we are still open for feedback if there are any concerns with the manual or suggestions. Depending on that feedback, we obviously will have to make changes, and what time period that consumes is sort of a to be seen based on what feedback we get at this stage. The goal is to get it out as soon as possible, and we will provide updates through the same platform that we had previously, so through our mailing list and on our ISC website. The display period closes at the end of toward the end of September. We are aiming to have all updates done and out the final manual out the door by early October.
Very good. Next one is around just the so Andrew's asked about with version 2.2 coming out, and you've alluded to the scorecards. Are they going to be available straight away, or is there a time frame when that'll be released?
Yeah, the scorecards are done and dusted. We internally, we've just got to do some final little dot control things, and then they'll be uploaded and made available on ISAP resources. As I mentioned before, the screening process is applicable to both version 2.1 and version 2.2. So scorecards for both version 2.1 and 2.2 will be uploaded to ISAP resources. The current time frame on that is mid-September, I think, is where we're aiming to have all of the collateral up by.
Very good. There's a long one here, so but I think this one's important. So version 2.1 was advised to be more efficient, and there were less must statements than version 2. But and then it says, and ISC continued to tell the industry it was easier than version 2.0. However, several benchmarks are increased, some significantly, without noting this to industry until undertaking adopting the new rating. So the question is, will version 2.2 improvements also include those increased benchmarks for version 2.1?
The only change it could be interpreted as an increase in benchmark is as per the presentation before relating to E&V credits. And as I mentioned previously, that was entirely informed by historic results of projects against those very criteria. So we do not expect that we have increased the difficulty of the TM for a vast majority of projects out there. All other credit criteria have, if anything, gone the opposite direction and are trying to make level 1 more accessible in many instances, trying to make the criteria more flexible. And in the instance of optional criteria, trying to make the pathway that projects want to apply and the items that they want to target more up to their sort of preference of what they prioritize.
Thanks, Ben. I think really good question here around the workforce credits, and this has been a big topic of discussion in ISC recently. So can you adopt the employee definition for Workforce 2 and Workforce 3 for your 2.1 rating without having to adopt the entire new technical manual, or do you need to submit a TC?
Yeah, I think you can start to see when I mentioned before the challenges that we saw between version 2.0 and 2.1 coming to fruition very quickly. There are several other changes that accompanied those definition changes to make the credit flow appropriately. It is unlikely that they will be able to be applied to the version 2.1 credit. The credit as a whole would have to be applied in order for them to make sense and to make it work effectively, I guess, is the goal.
Yeah, appreciate that. Another question around from Steph about Ben mentioning the review period, so mid-September for information to be published, and then towards the end of September, we've got that review time. So how is IC planning to manage this review time? So we are putting, so I'll answer that. We're putting it on display now, and we're looking to have that time period. I think with how we're going to manage it is there is a defined time period. What we want to do is make sure we get this right and get the industry feedback included in there. I think what we have a really good comfort level in is the previous work that we've done through projects such as the 2.1 projects and getting a lot of feedback there through the technical working groups and other forms of feedback. So it's not just a small couple of weeks that we're looking at. This has been ongoing for a long time. So I think we're really, we've done a lot of stakeholder engagement. We've had hundreds of pieces of feedback. We've taken that on board. We've worked a lot behind the scenes with industry, particularly some experts out there from different companies and so forth to make sure that we take that on board. So I think there's been a lot going into it now, and we're really welcoming and looking forward to the more feedback, and we're really confident that it'll be as positive as the feedback we've received. So really great question, Steph. I think with that is really appreciate everyone's time. I think the fact that we've had over 300 people join us for this webinar is fantastic. Really appreciate everyone getting on board and participating and coming through with their feedback and input. I think I'd like to thank my co-hosts, Toby Kent and Ben Wade, and also to the team at ISC and also everyone that's provided input and feedback to this process out in the industry. There is a lot of you, and I really appreciate that. I might just hand to Ben if you wanted to say any final words.
No, look, I think I captured it all before. Thank you very much, everyone, for all your input. It's pretty exciting to have this out, and thanks to the ISC team. We've done a great ripper job. Keen to hear any feedback that anyone's got, and if there's any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and please use the survey links provided for both positive and negative feedback. We want to hear it all. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Ben and Toby.
Thanks, everyone.
Final.
No.
Oh, yeah.
We're bang on time. That's great. Well done, Chris, Ben, and thank you all.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, everyone. We'll wrap it up now. Really look forward to your feedback and yeah, look forward to the next steps, getting version 2.2 out there. Thanks all.